chair and sit down. And people won't just listen to me. What happened this morning? Who said that? Yeah, we'll ask extra question to the backbenchers today. Okay, so let's sit down. Let's all settle down quickly. Okay, I'll count till 5 and everyone who is inside the room needs to be sitting on a chair. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, quarter to 5. I can still see people just not sitting down. Sit down. And 5. Thank you, everyone. Okay, good morning.
different cultures, different backgrounds. It's about boys and girls, different ages, tech people, non-tech people. What is your job? What is your hobby? Everything like that is diversity. It's the definition of it. Like, I was actually having a conversation with George and other people the other day, and I was impressed about how many languages you speak. To be honest, I thought that you only speak like Hindi and 1, 2. And George comes to me and he says, Konstantina, there are 16 languages that is spoken from more people than Greek is. So I'm like, my country is really small. So next slide, please. So, and what is inclusion? It's actually getting all those people, all of you, work together efficiently and making sure that there is space from all your talents. No matter where you come from, no matter who you are, no matter your ideas, your favorite cricket club, no matter what, you can actually work all together with us. Next slide, Priyanka. Thank you. Oh, there is a slide missing. Thank you. So why diversity is important? We say, oh, diversity, 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 but why do we care in our workplace in general? Well, it's not only about the numbers, but it actually has been proven that diverse people actually solve problems better because they have more ideas, they innovate more, and they actually are able to attract more people. Just think about it. When you go and you speak to people, you want to be as diverse as possible so you can resonate to more people as possible. It will be like a group based on like many girls and boys, many ages, many backgrounds. It will resonate with more people like all female or all male. So why do we speak about diversity in Mozilla? We all day say, oh, we need diversity, but why do we actually care how it actually resonates with us as Mozillians? Well, the important stuff is that diversity is part of who we are if we think about it. We say that we want an open source. We want the internet to be open and accessible to all, no matter what, all. And all means diversity. If we don't take all, then we're excluding people. So we're not actually in Mozilla. Next one. So it's about those 4 pillars, about innovation, that we actually want to build products that actually address all of your problems. Our products shouldn't be only for US people that are like living in Detroit. Our products should be for everyone. We want impact because the more diverse ideas you have, the more solutions you're gonna have, the best of an impact. You want the people, we want to attract and maintain everybody. We just want to be able to actually have whatever you are and you actually agree with our mission, you can stay with us and doing good. We also say, and we have those t-shirts that it says, doing good is part of our code. And we enable the web for everybody, so that's doing good. So a little bit about Mozilla and strategy. So we actually understood that diversity is important for us. It's part of us. And we also understood that our community is immensely diverse. Like the people who are sitting here, the people who are joining all hands. And we also understood that we are actually not doing a great job enabling all those people. We're not including all those people. We're not making sure that we're hearing all those people. And we want to change that. Next one. So what did the diversity and inclusion group inside Mozilla did, and what Larissa was leading, is that she wanted to hear about what Mozillians have to say on where diversity and inclusion is inside Mozilla. So what Larissa did, she actually had interviews, open forums. She actually heard about 300 people inside Mozilla about what diversity and inclusion means for them and what Mozilla's strategy should be about diversity and inclusion. I don't know, Priyanka, like a lot of you might have been spoken to her about that. So this is actually the outcome that has come from you. We wanted to hear from you about what we're gonna do and what our strategy is gonna be. So we came into 3 action plans, and this is based on what people said about also the corporation. So we said we make inclusive practices the norm. We talked about that with Deb yesterday. People said how we're enforcing diversity. Well, we're not enforcing diversity. Diversity is part of who we are. Somebody said that. Diversity is Mozilla India, right? So this is our normality, and we take this for granted. We are going to include everybody, and this is our norm. We want to sustain those people. Like, we want to bring more people, that we want to reach out to more and more and more diverse people. No matter what, we want to hear their voice, and we want to develop that inside our community. We want to make sure that we are not just taking people in, but we want to make sure that those people will stay and they will attract more diverse people. So next one. So next one is what I want to do is like, how much time am I left? Awesome, I have 10 minutes. So I want you to, like, you're already in tables, so what I want you to do is take those two questions. So you heard about what is our strategy, but we don't have like a strategy for specific communities. And we're also not sure about what is happening in every specific community. I'm based in Greece, and I won't probably understand diversity in your community as well as you understand it, because you're on the ground. You know what is happening. You know what you should do. So what I want you to do is I want you to group, and one of the team is going to be a note taker, and I want you to think how we can achieve a more diverse Indian community. And I want you to give an example. Like, think about it. Priyanka was actually telling me that you have a lot of students, which is awesome. We're reaching a lot of students. But we don't have like more elder people. We don't have like over 25, 30 years old people. People do not stay. And I was actually having a conversation the other day with Kalias, who is a professor over there. So he's pretty awesome. He's a professor in a tech college. So how we can actually bring more people like him inside our community? How we can not only reach the students, but how can we reach to our professors? So think about it, how we can achieve a more diverse Indian community, and how can we measure progress? Like we say, like that's a really hard metric to measure, so we need something simple. For example, how many girls we had in the previous Indian community meetup? The previous one. So we had hardly 7 or 8, and now we have around 25. That is a good progress metric. You achieved actually as an Indian community to have a bigger diversity in your community by bringing more girls. You did that. That's a progress. That's a metric that you've measured. So what I want you to do is sit on our tables, and for the rest of the 5 minutes, we're gonna have like 2 minutes presentation. You're gonna write like how you can achieve a more diverse Indian community. What are your strategies? Like, think simple. You don't need to write down like by 5 months I'm gonna have that many girls. By 10 months I'm gonna talk to that many rural areas. Just bring up ideas and how you can actually measure those ideas. Thank you. Yeah, just one more. So those are ideas that have been answered by other Mozillians, and those are the people that they are saying, and this is gonna bring your ideas. So you have 5 minutes, and Priyanka is gonna measure it about bringing more diverse in your community. Thank you. Come on. Don't look at me. Start writing. Start writing.
Yeah, your 5 minutes start now.
Galaxy, I'm watching you. I'm watching you, Galaxy. If you have any questions, I'm here. Priyanka is here. She's pretty awesome too. Surstika is here somewhere. She's pretty awesome. There she is. So if you have any questions, raise your hand, and I'm gonna come and I'm gonna help you. Okay, everybody. Priyanka doesn't give me more minutes. She wants you to dance tonight. Hello. Thank you. So what we're gonna do is quickly pass from every table, and one of you is gonna say completely, really fast, one idea that they came up, and then I'm gonna gather ideas and give it over to Brad. People. Hello, hello. I don't really listen to it. Okay, let's start with this table front here. Guys. Really quickly, your idea.
So, as far as the definition of diversity is concerned, we do need to add the age, gender, resources, functional areas, different region with different backgrounds. And what we thought that to achieve them all, we need the knowledge transfer, we need the awareness, the participation, and we have to multiply the connections that we have now, and we needed an incremental approach. And when it comes to measuring the diversity, we thought that documentation is very important. Then increased participation in different contribution areas, and then taking count of multiplied connections.
E- Yeah, so we were discussing that each man sitting in this room should bring their girlfriends. So that is one way to bring in more girls. I mean, someone who really want to contribute, maybe you can motivate them and then bring them up. Then the second thing, yeah, the second thing that we were discussing was if you can bring in more people. I mean, as in there are a lot of people from Bangalore, then like UP, or, not UP, Nasik, and all those places. But if we can, like take up the new areas, as in like some more rural areas, so then it's better. I mean, to bring in more people. Yeah.
Okay, so we already have quite a lot of diversity in Mozilla, but we were thinking about we thought about major two sectors that are less in number. Mainly people from computer engineering come into Mozilla, so we need to get people from other branches too. Like we have Pushpita from journalism also here, so we need more people from other branches too. So it's not necessarily um, computer engineering. And also we need to get elderly people involved in it, and we can have some programs, we can keep events for them, we can have activities that gets them interested, and we can help them. Some of them are already web literate, or and those of them who are not, we can help them be.
Diversity is the meaning, like for us to how to bring the people about. For example, in the India, we are totally focused on the students, but why don't we bring some teachers and professors and university on that on this campus? So it would be easy for us if the teachers or the university professors are part of it. So it's easy to reduce this particular gap, and we will easily spread about what the mission we have. So that was, and the second point was, yeah, the contribution, like if I'm talking about localization, right? So if I want to convince anyone to localize anything, so first I need to focus on what is the import of localization. It depends on us like a mentor, how they are guiding. Are they willing to understand the things that they wanted to do? So this is kind of thing the diversity we are measuring. And if we are talking about the how to measure the progress, so it's something kind of a data we want, like some matrices we want, like what is the event track, how it went, okay, what is the future outcomes. So that particular things we need to, all the things we need to mention, and according to that we can measure the particular progress, and hopefully we get a progress and we can proceed further. Thank you so much.
So our team was basically deciding upon the age group diversity we wanted. So we discussed more about the ways we can improve the age group diversity in our community. Like if you see in this room, there are hardly 3 or 4 people over the age of 30, for example. So what we were thinking is we could actually go to more community spaces and uh, ask the professionals to actually join us and help us. So this will not only allow us to get a more diverse community, but would also give us more experience and learning opportunities. So we were thinking about encouraging them to join in our Mozilla Winter of Security program, Tech Speaker program, and those kind of programs. So the other thing we were thinking about is like communicating and adopting another nearby community that is able to do more diversity in them, so that we can learn more diversity opportunities, and that's it.
Cool. So we have like include professors along with students in the Mozilla clubs to have more diversity, and women-focused events and empower women to become mentors, because like when they are in the actual leadership roles, people get to see and like be inspired and motivated from them. And how can we measure progress? We can introduce effective matrices, and we can keep a regular check on them, so that we know our actual figures and we know right now how diverse is the community and how are we progressing. So that was it.
Because we don't have enough time and Priyanka's give me killing looks, I want to hear one more table. So who really wants to speak? Oh, okay. Sorry, Priyanka. I'm going to give it first to you and I'm going to give it to all of you.
Good morning, everyone. The point that I would like to add is regarding the measuring the progress. That is 20% participation to here today means for this program is great. It's amazing. So what I like to add is like for these WOMOS activities, what really happens is like in our colleges. If a club activity is happening, there will be a girl who's presenting the actual comparing thing, and all the website part will be done by a geek guy. So I'd like more participation for women means encouraging by empowering them by giving the responsibility of building a website or doing the documentation part or like that. Thank you.
So we have two quick points that we'd like to make apart from what the others have already said. One is regarding transgenders. According to a 2014 census survey, we have around 4.9 lakh transgenders in India. So removing the preconceived notions that people have on the third gender, educate them and try to bring them on board. And the second point is about disabled people. So try to improve the accessibility in terms of the products that we make and things that we build to make it more accessible to a different set of people than we already are targeting. That's all.
I'm running.
Actually, many of our want to share many things. We'll finish it up first. First of all, in Mozilla India, the people are included from Jammu and Kashmir to Kerala. That is the most important diverse thing that is happening in Mozilla India. And after returning from this meetup, many people will come and contact us, especially the WOMOs, that as this number of WOMOs has increased this time in the meetup. The WOMOs will be might get more influenced after returning, and then the number of WOMOs will find for sure. Yeah, that's it. She'll be explaining the progress.
For progress, we should have communication between our regional communities so that it will means we will get more diverse members from different areas. We can count means number of literate people so that we will come to know what is our progress. Then that's it.
Thank you. Round of applause.
Yeah, so it's about staging experiences, people who are here because we got some experience out of the programs we have been attending. So when you go out, conduct events, you need to evangelize the experience you're having. So that's what will motivate people to come in, and that will create a more diverse community. So that talks about empowerment and motivation. So that's what we are supposed to evangelize. Not a good product becomes successful because of the experience in it. Similar is a community. The kind of experience you get in the community is how the community is going to grow. And about measuring progress, it's about recruitment. So this experience, what will bring in a person in, that person will get inspired by another person, and that will continue. So that's that's how we can measure progress in a very very quantitative way, and you can be very specific also. Yeah.
Thank you. Come on, guys. Somebody wanted to speak here. Quick.
So, I totally agree to the point of recognition, recruitments. But before coming up with recruitment, I see, it is a boom for entrepreneurs. So Mozilla should encourage entrepreneurs to build open source applications such that we can create more opportunities for volunteers to participate in. And second, we should support FOSS India now. People know what is Mozilla. Most of the people know what is Mozilla. To get diversified, we should get into FOSS India and let other people know about what we are, and get people from other communities to contribute to Mozilla as well. Thank you.
Anybody?
Most of the points were covered. I just have one extra point. We should have a unified portal so that like Pune community, we should know what each and every community in India is doing. Like most of us are unaware of what Jaipur is doing or Gujarat is doing. So there should be a one platform to know what communities are contributing to. That's it.
Anybody who hasn't spoken and wants to speak? We have the last one. Sorry, Priyanka.
Hello everyone, this is Bhanshu. I am going to talk about the first question. We can achieve a more diversified Indian community by spreading Mozilla's mission and vision, like what Mozilla is doing to each and every group of people around India, irrespective of their culture, areas of interest, gender, age, etc. So like in this way, Mozilla India community can be more diversified. Also, we can have a diversity in the way like Mozillians from each community should reach out to their local clubs, institutes, colleges, like so and spreading the awareness about Mozilla's mission and vision. Thank you.
I'm gonna give it over to Brad to talk about the brand. And I'm gonna gather all your ideas and I'm gonna give them to them. You want to share something? Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Konstantina. Okay, so I've met some of you I probably haven't met yet. My name's Brad, or Bradley Cohen. I work in Portland, same office as Dietrich, and I work on the marketing team. And I spend most of my time working on developer marketing and on brand issues. And so I'm here to talk about a lot of these things. And there's a couple of things, so a few things I want to say right at the beginning. One, I have a lot of content that I'm trying to squeeze into a little bit of time. So I might move quickly, and I really appreciate your attention and helping me get through that stuff. The second one is, one of the things I really want to show is that some of the things that you guys are hearing from George about what we're doing with the Mozilla brand, I want to show you that these are things that we're trying to do internally for ourselves as well. Like, we're trying to make these same changes at the same time. And so it's not just something that we're sending to India. This is something that we are also going through ourselves. And I want to show you some examples of that. And then the third thing is, I want to bring in some of the reasons for those things, some of the deeper thinking, and give you guys some explanations about that. Some of you might have been in my session yesterday, and some of you will have seen some of this before. So, but you saw it more in depth and had time to ask questions and things. But I want to have a chance to show it to everybody. So, let's go ahead and hit the next slide. So, some of the things that we're going to talk about today. One is the Developer Perception Survey, which is a big survey that we ran to developers to see what do they think, what do they care about. This was a global survey, and we'll get into some of those results. The second thing was I want to talk about web compatibility a little bit. So web compatibility and tech and innovation awareness, these are two things that these are the two main goals for the developer marketing team. So I want to explain a little bit of that to you guys. And I have a session later today more about web compat as well, so I'll just touch a little bit on it today in this session. And then the fourth one is the brand update, just talking to you guys about the brand and some information on that. Okay, so next slide. So developer perception survey. Let's go to the next one. So why did we do this? The reason we did this is because if you had come to me a month ago and said, what do developers think about Mozilla? We didn't have good answers. We had people saying, I think it's this or I think it's that, but we wanted to try to establish a baseline, establish some kind of metric that we could measure over time and see if there are trends or differences. And we didn't have any visibility into any of that. And so this information from the survey is stuff that we got about a month ago. We just shared it internally within Mozilla. We haven't shared it publicly yet, but we're getting ready to do that. We're going to put some of this up on the wiki as well, but this was a great opportunity to share some of it. So next slide is, before we get into this, I want to say we don't think the survey is perfect, and we're going to work to make it better over time. Some of the problems with it is that we think that the population that took the survey is older than what the real world really looks like for developers. We think that it's skewed towards people who work in large businesses, Intel, Oracle, very, very big businesses, and didn't represent enough people who work in smaller companies or are freelance contractors or things like that. And then we also think that there was something like 55% of the people who were in the survey under the age of 25 were from the APAC region. And so it means that anytime we look at anything about youth, it answers the same way the APAC region did. And anytime we look at something about the APAC region, the answers look like the youth answers. And so we need to get better so that we can have statistically significant differentiation there, so that we can say, ask about global youth without having it look like the global youth just does what the APAC region does. So that said, these are some issues that we had. We still think that there's a lot of valuable information, and these are just things that we need to improve upon and keep in mind as we look at the results. Okay, so next one. Go ahead. Okay, so unaided awareness is a really important way to measure an awareness of a brand or an organization. It means that aided awareness would be if I said, do you know about Mozilla? And you could say, yes, I know about Mozilla. Unaided awareness is saying, what companies are important? And if you name Mozilla, then that takes a lot more effort. That means that we're really in your brain. So unaided awareness, we asked the question, please, we had 20 companies listed, and we said, please mark up to 5 companies involved in building the web platform that you feel are important today. And these percentages are the percentage of people who said, yes, I'm going to mark that answer. So Mozilla did not do, we did okay. So we are in the top, 7, but percentage-wise, we're not very good. And you can see Microsoft and Google are up here, Amazon, Oracle, Apple, and it's weird because, Apple doesn't actually, I wouldn't think that Apple does as much to build the web platform as Mozilla does. But you can see that we suffer in that situation. People just think, well, Apple does a lot, so they probably are important there, something like that. So we only had 6% there. Not great. We want to make that better. But the good news is, at least we have a number. So now we can ask this question again in 6 months and in a year. and we can start to see if it's changing and how it's changing. And I can't say much more about this number until we see it a couple more times. That right now I just know where it is at one point in time. And the idea is to start to see it over multiple points in time and see how it's changing. So how do we make that number better? That's what a lot of the stuff in the rest of this deck is going to talk about. Okay, so next slide. A couple of other interesting things is we asked about familiarity with Firefox, where the answers were, I know and test for Firefox, and then I know and I used to test for Firefox, but I don't anymore. I have heard of it, but I've never tested for it. And then lastly, I'm not very familiar with this at all. This is an interesting point, and what we want to do is shrink this number and put more of these people into this number. We want less people to say, I used to test for it, and more people to say, I still test for it. But we want to also ask more questions about this and get more information about what this really means. Okay, next slide. So MDN is a great resource for people who are looking for information about how they're implementing things. And one thing that we learned is that most people don't know that MDN is part of Mozilla. MDN is a really valuable tool for developers that we help with. And most people don't know that it's Mozilla. You can see that in connected devices and mobile, it's a little bit worse. But even in the web developer section, only 40% of web developers know that MDN is a Mozilla thing. And that's a huge missed opportunity. And so when we ask people, name companies that are important for building the web platform, this 60% of web developers, they don't know that when they use MDN, it's Mozilla. They don't know that we're helping them there. And so those are the kinds of challenges that we have. That's why the Mozilla brand I think that's a contributing reason why the Mozilla brand has low awareness. Okay, next slide. And then lastly, there's this idea that, so when we ask which companies provide great technology in web browsers, we are right up there with Google. Right there, neck and neck. People do think, they think that Mozilla provides really excellent technology for web browsers. But when we ask about things like who provides great dev tools or development platform or developer program, we're down to people saying 30%, 20% of people saying that Mozilla does a good job there. And so these are the kinds of things where people don't associate the work we do, or we need to get better about talking about the work we do when we help developers, and we need to get better at helping developers. Okay, next slide. So the key takeaways from this are our unaided awareness is pretty low, and we want to get that higher. We don't have a lot of negative baggage to overcome, meaning people don't hate Mozilla. Nobody says, I don't like Mozilla. But there's a lot of people who don't know about Mozilla or don't love Mozilla, and that's where we want to have an impact. It would be really bad if a lot of people hated Mozilla. We'd have to work from the negative and get all the way back to zero and then start getting positive. Luckily, we're just starting from a lot of people being very neutral, and we can just try and get them positive. And then lastly, people don't know what we do aside from Firefox. And the important piece of that is we have a lot of research showing that the more people know about Mozilla, about the Mozilla mission, about the fact that Mozilla has this active community and is a nonprofit, the more they know about those things, the better they think Firefox is. There's a high correlation there between knowing those things about Mozilla and thinking that Firefox is great. And so the more that we can do to promote awareness about Mozilla and the things Mozilla does and the activities of the Mozilla community, the more that we can influence people to think that Firefox is amazing as well. It's a win-win. Okay, next slide. So I want to talk now about a couple of things that we see as the top goals for developer marketing. The first one is web compatibility and cross-browser compatibility. Okay. So there's a vicious cycle with cross-browser compatibility. When something doesn't work in a browser, and it doesn't just have to be Firefox, but for our case, that's what we care about, the product quality perception, when something crashes, when there's lag, when there's something janky or the screen is splitting, that's a quality perception for Firefox or for the browser. Even though in our mind, it's like, no, but that's a website problem. But the user thinks that it's a browser problem. And so we have that. And then we also have developers not targeting Firefox. That leads to broken web experiences and low product quality perception. So as developers start to say, oh, Firefox has problems, I'm just going to work in Chrome, then that leads to more problems, like in the first bullet point. And then lastly, we're in a situation where we're starting to see globally 7 out of 10 developers currently choose Chrome, heavily choose Chrome. They might still do a little in Firefox, but they heavily choose Chrome. And so then that leads to more of this, which leads to more of that, which leads to more of this. And so this is the kind of stuff that we have to work on. This is what it looks like in the worst of it. So this is a site where somebody was doing some visualization of audio, and it was like a cool experimental site. And they just did it for Chrome, and if you went in Firefox, it just said, sorry, we don't support this, you should try it in Chrome. And this becomes a big push for people to say, you know, they're saying, hey, go use Chrome. And the more you experience something like this, the worse it is. And so that's why we think that this cross-browser compatibility message is maybe the most important thing that we can talk to developers about right now. So part of what's causing this is that the web is bigger than ever. Over 1 billion sites, 24,000 different kinds of devices you have to target, about 3 billion humans using it, over 12,000 specified APIs, and there's not one browser that actually implements them all. And then developers have less experience than ever before. So the number of developers with less than 2 years professional experience is increasing year over year. So more and more people every year start getting into development. And many of these people are learning in code schools and other programs that teach in Chrome and with Chrome Dev Tools exclusively. And it's an important thing that we have to start addressing. So this is from Mike Taylor, one of the Firefox Web Compat leads. And the quote is, fixing compatibility bugs is treating the systems. And we treat the disease by talking about cross-browser testing. And so this is the main issue. In the same way that we're moving away, you know, George is talking about, we need to talk about issues, not just products. The way to deal with Web Compat is not just to fix bugs. It's to start getting out there and talking to people about why it's important. Next slide. And we've built some messaging, and we're going to be able to share this about what we think are the effective ways to talk to people. And you'll miss opportunities because 50% of desktop users don't use Chrome. It's part of being an expert. Your work is your resume. If you want to show people that you're an excellent developer, then you want to show them that you know how to do this. It's good for the health of the web. Not everybody has the same equipment or network connection as you do. Make sure your site works everywhere that users are for all kinds of users. And it's not as hard as it used to be to do. You might think this is a pain in the butt. It's not that big of a pain in the butt anymore. Check implementation status before using features. Sometimes using W3C standard versus browser-specific implementation is all you need to do. And so we have some good talking points for how to go out and talk about this stuff. And we have also started creating some visual assets to explain it and sharing these on social media. And the next step that we need to get better at is sharing these things with you guys so that you can take this up as one of the things that you go and talk to people about, using some content that we've helped create that hopefully makes it easier for you to do that. Okay, so the second goal for developer marketing, tech and innovation awareness. This is important because Mozilla's got that 6% unaided awareness. And so how do we make people more aware of Mozilla? We talk louder and we say more about the cool things we're doing. So there is awesome stuff happening inside Mozilla. We all know this, right? There are people here who are contributing to all different parts of things that are happening at Mozilla, but we don't get a lot of attention for those things, and we don't get a lot of credit. And so that's why the Rust video that I showed yesterday, we want to get louder about the cool stuff we're doing with Rust and Servo. That's something that's really, really neat, and we're not loud enough about it. So we want to talk more about the awesome stuff that's happening. And this is something that you guys can contribute to. This is a new thing. We don't know exactly how to do it. But I know that you can help, and that's something that we have to figure out. I don't have all the answers today, but I know that there's something that we can do here. So this is just a short list of some of the things that we're doing that I know we should be talking more about. There's Rust and Servo. There's the localization efforts, which are especially important in places where you have to develop potentially for multiple languages. There's the connected devices work that we're doing and the Internet of Things work, and Dietrich has talked a lot about that here, and that's really interesting. And then there's also things that we've helped with, like Let's Encrypt, which is helping secure the web and where we've put a lot of effort. And then there's also something new which just came out 2 days ago, Observatory. And these are the kinds of things that we can do more to talk about. Okay, next slide. So, for example, with Observatory, we care about how secure the web is. And what we know is that there's actually super low adoption of these security technologies for websites that have been around. You know, here's one that's been around since 2010, and its adoption rate is still only 5% of websites. So why isn't this happening? It's because the information was hard to find, it was not all in one place, and the documentation was not very good. So what someone from our information security team did was, next slide, build Observatory. It's at observatory.mozilla.com, where you can go and you can scan a website. It will test for which of those things are correctly configured, and if they're not correctly configured, it'll give you a grade and say you haven't done these things, and link you to the documentation of how to fix it. And it's a way to expose and make transparent all of these existing solutions for better security on the web with links to how to get those things going. What I want to point to is up here. So up there, it's Observatory by Mozilla. And this relates back to everything I was saying earlier, where we're trying internally to do a better job. This is something that a few years ago might have been put out under some separate name, some separate URL, with some different logo. But now we're saying we want to try to relate these things back to Mozilla. We want Mozilla to get credit. We want people to know that Mozilla is responsible for helping with these things. And when they say, wow, I used Observatory and it helped me create sites that were more secure, and it helped me convince people that I work for that this is an important thing and it's helping the web, and I know that Mozilla was the group that really helped me do that. That's the kind of thing that we want to start to promote. And that connects into the brand, which is what I want to talk about now. So the brand update. Let's hit the next slide. So this is a couple of articles that are up on the wiki that I put there. And it's about brand guidelines and resources. And so there's one, this is a long article. It says, why do we have brand guidelines? And I'm going to talk about some of that now. And it's the reasoning, like why are we doing this? Because what I didn't want to do is put up some guidelines and just say, these are the guidelines. I wanted to take the time to say, let me explain why we think this is important. Okay, next slide. So this is a picture of what somebody who doesn't know Mozilla thinks Mozilla looks like. We had someone who didn't know much about Mozilla. We said, go try to learn about Mozilla and document how you did it and come back with all the logos and things that you find that you think are Mozilla. Some of these things are dead. Some of these things are already discontinued. But they didn't know that. And there's all these different things, and it's so complicated, and all of these different logos that don't look like they really look that much like each other. In fact, this section is pretty good, right? This is the Firefox section, and all of those logos are pretty good in relation to each other because this product has handled its logos really well. But you see, everything else we do, it's hard to find a relationship. And so people might be interacting with us in 5, 6 different places and not really recognize that all of those places are part of the same organization. And so when we start to think about, well, why do we have such low awareness? Why do only 6 people able to say Mozilla is important for the web? We think that it has something to do with the fact that it's hard to recognize when you're interacting with Mozilla. I mean, you guys know because you're deeply involved. but we're talking more about people who are not super active in the community. So there are some things that we're trying to do, and there's more information about all of this on the wiki, but things that we're trying to do to simplify this. So one is, when somebody comes up with an experiment, and you see this, if you guys have been following what's happening in connected devices, they're doing a really good job of this. All of their experiments are called Project something. Project Vani, Project Link, Project, I don't remember what all the other ones are. SensorWeb. And the reason we did that is we said, let's simplify the naming of things when they're really young. Because they're experiments. We don't know if they're going to work. And so we say, look, just call it Project something. And if you do that, the brand team doesn't care what you call it. Call it anything you want. We'll just put a stamp on it and say, approved. Go for it. As opposed to, I have an idea for something. I haven't even written a line of code, and I'm going to build a logo and a brand and get a website and all this stuff. And the thing is, we don't know if it's going to work. All of these things are experiments. So if we come out with something and we say, we have a website, this looks professional, it looks like it's totally completed, and then 6 months later we say we're not going to work on that anymore, the perception for someone is that they say, look, Mozilla tried to do this and they failed. But if we come out with something that we say, this is an experiment, we're really interested in it, and we're going to try it, and then 6 months later we stop, they don't say, oh, Mozilla failed. They say, so I guess that experiment didn't work, but that was really neat that you tried it. And so it hurts us less if we are clear about things that are early stage, if we're clear about things that are experimental, rather than trying to make everything look professional and completed and like a final product right at the beginning. And so we say, you put a project in front of it. It's a signifier that something is early stage. And it protects the PR group. They feel more comfortable talking about things when it's clear that they're early stage. Because if an article gets written and it misrepresents it, they have a really clear way to say, oh, no, they misunderstood. It's a project, it's really clear. And so they don't get as nervous about talking about things. And it makes naming simpler. You don't have to spend 3 weeks arguing about what the name's going to be when you should be starting to write the code. And then when things get more mature, then we drop it, and it gets a real name. And that's the time where it makes sense to spend that time saying, what's the right name for this thing? And how many times when you're building something do you have a really great idea, and in the weeks or months between when you have that idea and when you actually get it finished, you run into all kinds of problems that totally change what this thing is actually going to be. So why don't you name it when you get to that point where you're more sure that it's going to be this thing, versus when you have this idea and you don't even know what the problems are going to be along the way yet. And then the other thing is that in the name we just say no fire, no fox, no Moz, no Zilla. We keep those things out because, again, this is an experiment, and it hasn't earned, these are the brands that we feel really strongly about. They're really high quality. And so whatever this project is, we want to see that it gets to a point where it shows that it has value. It shows that people are interested in it. People are coming to use it. It has a lot of beta testers. People, or it has a lot of contributors. Whatever it is, it's showing a lot of success on its own. It's like, great. Now when we pick the name, it deserves to be associated with these brands more directly. But if we call it Mozilla Fox, Mozilla Fox Link Professional Edition, and then we start writing code, and then 4 weeks later we say, this actually isn't as good an idea as we thought, and we kill it. So, oh, Mozilla Fox Professional, failed, and Mozilla made another mistake, instead of Mozilla tried something interesting with this project. And so that's the idea behind this. And then what we do is we have a template for what the word mark would be. And it's, project something by Mozilla. And you see this. You see the connected devices team doing this. You see other teams in Mozilla starting to adopt this. And by far, the most feedback I've gotten from those teams is, oh, thank you. God, we would have spent 3 weeks working on what this was going to be instead of working on the product. And we did this in 1 day, and we got right back to working on the product, and we didn't have all those arguments. And so, I'm hoping that this is something that, you guys in the community, if you start to work on projects, that this is something that you guys consider as well, if it's appropriate. but I at least wanted to share why. And also because it's something that I hope you'll see a lot coming from experiments inside of Mozilla to understand why you're seeing it change that way. And these are three that are in connected devices, and this is what they use now. Maybe not everywhere, we're still working on it, but they definitely use it some. Okay. So then we have the thing of, now we say, we're giving that word mark to these projects. What used to happen is those projects would say, we have a name, we need a logo. And it's like, have you written any code yet? No, but we need a logo. And we don't want that. Remember that picture of all those different logos? We want to keep that as simple as possible. So we want to wait to do logos for things until they're really getting ready to launch. And even then, there are some things that may never need their own logo, because what kind of tool is it? Is it just an internal tool? Does it really need a logo? What does it need? And we want to answer that question. But Mozilla is about freedom, and it is about expression. And we're not trying to say you can't make things look cool. You can absolutely make things look cool. But what we're talking about is the difference between a logo and art, or a logo and design. You can still do a lot of art and a lot of design without making a logo. So one really great example is this right here. So this came from a request from a guy that I work with in Portland. And he wanted to reward some people who did a really great job helping with a security project. And he said, I need a logo. That was the request that came in. I need a logo. And we said, why do you need a logo? And he said, because I need to make t-shirts. And he was like, but you don't actually need a logo to make t-shirts. And in fact, if you just make a t-shirt using a logo, like, you're limiting yourself. You could put all kinds of different things on that t-shirt. You could put something much more creative on that t-shirt. And so don't think I need a logo for everything. Ask yourself the question, what do I actually want to do here? Am I making a sticker? Does it need to be a logo, or can it just be an awesome looking sticker? And so we have a couple of examples here. So this was an illustration that was done for L10N. And this is awesome. And they said, can we use this? And we said, absolutely. Like, this is beautiful. And like, if you would come to us and say, we need to make a logo, we say, I don't know. But if you want to make a sticker or something that has an awesome illustration like this, yeah, we're not going to get in the way at all. Like, please do it. This is something that the WebRTC group created for one of their websites. And we said, yes, absolutely. Like, we don't even, yeah, do whatever you want. It looks great. Just don't make it a logo, because the logo should be the project or the lockup or the thing that looks like the rest of Mozilla. Okay, so next slide. So in this case, this was the first attempt. This is what the t-shirt was going to be. But once we said, well, but if you're making a t-shirt, why don't we just make you a cool t-shirt? So what we did was, you might not be able to see this, but it's the Mozilla security word mark. So on the shirt, there was the word mark, but then there was an illustration of this knight character who's the protector, who was doing the securing. And I think in the end, they ended up with a really awesome shirt that was cooler than the shirt that they would have gotten if they just went through with, well, we need a logo. Because they didn't need a logo. What they needed was an awesome shirt. And so that's the kind of thing I want you guys to think about, is when you say, when you hear yourself saying, we need a logo, it's like, do you need a logo, or do you need an awesome sticker? Do you need a logo, or do you need an awesome flyer? And that helps you go to designers and say, you have more freedom than just making a logo. Make this thing look really, really cool. And we have this template that you can just use to put in the corner, in the top, or the bottom, or whatever, that says this is a Mozilla thing. And so this is all supposed to illustrate that what we're trying to do here is give tools for how to do things and guidelines that say, here's an easy way to go through this process and make it so that you have something awesome at the end, rather than rules of saying, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. So saying don't do this is never going to work unless you give a better option. So then lastly, there's the Mozilla brand work. And I think almost everybody here has seen the blog posts and stuff that have been out covering the initial design work for the Mozilla brand. Can we see the next slide? And so I'm not going to run through it all, because I think most people have seen these. But we've been publicly releasing and talking about work that's happening on the Mozilla brand. And one question that comes up a lot is, well, why are we doing this? And a lot of times I'll hear people say, why are we rebranding Mozilla? And the answer is kind of, one way to answer that is that we're not. Mozilla doesn't really have a full and complete brand, right? If you go to the website and you look at the brand resources for Firefox, there's logos and guides for how to do the logos, and there's the logo for the developer edition, and there's the color palettes, and there's all this different stuff, how to put it together, how much space it needs. And if you look at for Mozilla, all you have is the word Mozilla in a font and a couple of colors. Like, that's it. That's all we have. What if you have to put it in a circle? What if you need a favicon? What if you have to put it in a tiny square? What if you need an avatar for an account? What if you want to represent a community? Like, we don't have guidelines for any of that stuff, because all we really have for Mozilla right now is a font. They say this is the font. And so this is all work. This is all work in progress. This is all changing. But it's work in progress to represent Mozilla with just as strong a brand as Firefox has. So one thing that came up in our session yesterday that I thought was a really great point was somebody mentioned that when people write about Mozilla, when a blogger writes about Mozilla, when they write about something that Mark Sermon says, all the time you see it where they put Mozilla and then they put the Firefox logo. And why do they do that? Because we don't have a logo for Mozilla. Like, all we have is that word, and they want something. They want a picture. And what you see is when Wired and Fast Company and all of these other blogs have been writing about this work, even though we don't have one selected, what you don't see is them putting the Firefox logo up, because they have pictures now. They have something to talk about. They have something to show when they're talking about Mozilla. And so even though we haven't picked it, we're already starting to address that problem. And by doing that, what we lead to is a situation where when bloggers and journalists and anybody really talks about Mozilla, they can talk about Mozilla itself without conflating it and confusing it with Firefox. That doesn't mean we're trying to separate them. We very much want them to be connected. And Firefox is incredibly important. Like, nobody is saying it's not important. We just want people to be able to talk about Mozilla on its own. We're just trying to enable that. And so when we do that, what we think is that that's a really important way to help us get from that 6% unaided awareness to higher, to enable people to talk about Mozilla, to have a logo for Mozilla, to talk about the things Mozilla is doing without confusing it for what Firefox is. So I think that is it. This is the URL for the Open Design blog, where they're continuing to talk about the work on that design process. If you want to follow that, they're going to keep blogging there for the next few months at least. And I hope this was a helpful look sort of inside the developer marketing and brand reasoning and the why we're doing these things. And I hope it was helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brad. I'm sure that was really helpful. Okay, what we are going to do next is we are going to take our group photo. So one request, just use the back door when you go out. Do not use this one. And go out, like go out from the back door and then take left, and then there's the glass door, and then just go out and gather there, like the area outside or behind you. The other important thing is after the photo session, okay, just hold on, people, just 1 second. After the photo session, we'll be directly going out to the breakout rooms. So please remember that by schedule, you are supposed to go to the room as per your color code, right? So right after the photo, grab your tea, be in the room where you're supposed to be based on your color codes. And after that, we have the functional skill session. So just check for the room